Welcome to the Conference Championship edition of PonyFans.com's Scouting Report, joined as always by SMU Radio Network analyst John Hampton. Before we look ahead to the game at UCF in Orlando Saturday morning, let's look back for 1 minute to the victory Friday at East Carolina. Since he got hired, June Jones has talked about the different steps that this program needs to go through as it grows and develops. And when you look at that game, it's a road game against a team with very good athletes, a team that reportedly has had sort of a chip on its shoulder for SMU for a full year since it came in here and lost at Ford Stadium last season, and SMU fell behind by 2 touchdowns, yet they rallied to win on the road. What does that say to you about where this program is in terms of its growth and development?
Well, you can look at SMU's season, the 2010 season, from a bookend perspective. Went out to Lubbock to open the season, finished the season in Greenville, North Carolina. Pretty similar stories. Went out to Lubbock and slow start. Tech got in a big enough lead, but SMU kind of started making the run back into it. And Rich and I have said a couple different times throughout June's tenure, we've seen SMU teams fold at a certain point in a game, and the game was over with. And it may trade scores or whatever, but the game was pretty much decided early on. For this weekend, or last weekend in Greenville, first drive, East Carolina marched it 90-plus yards, got quick points, got a quick second touchdown. It was 14-0 before we had enough time to look up. And at that same point, that same juncture, where Rich and I would be like, we've seen SMU teams fold it down. Well, they started coming back. And Texas Tech, to start the season, they didn't win the game. They came back, had a chance, but couldn't make enough plays to win it. To finish the season with the championship on the line in the balance, they made enough plays after getting down early and got themselves back into it and are now going to represent the conference. So there's a lot of growth that's happened right in front of our eyes. We see it from week to week. It's maybe not as impressive because we see it so weekly, but to the general fan out in the college world, the college landscape, it's pretty impressive to say, wow, they've obviously taken that step. So I think we can say that they have.
And Coach Jones and the coaches on his staff have said this program isn't where it wants to be yet, or where they want it to be yet in terms of the depth and the number of athletes on this team. But they also pulled off this comeback at East Carolina. J.T. Brooks didn't play. Darius Johnson didn't play. Taylor Thompson.
Pat Fleming was starting off, had a nice little start.
And then he got hurt and went out. Taylor Thompson was out. Darrell Fields has been out. The depth is starting to get there. It's not where it needs to be yet, but
it's good coaching. It's good coaching, isn't it?
It's really good coaching. And you're starting to get plays from some backup guys, which they really haven't been able to get in recent years.
And it's just, that next man up mentality of they're letting whatever talent June and the staff has, they're letting them know you better be ready to play because we're going to have to rely on, all 85 on scholarship and everybody not on scholarship. You're all going to have a part. You all have a role. So when it's your turn to step in and make a play, be expecting to make a play and not so shocked and so wide-eyed and think, wow, it's going to take me a couple weeks to get, get acclimated to the college game. I mean, these kids step in with as much of a chance to succeed as they're going to have.
That victory clinches Conference USA's West Division for SMU. They're going to Orlando Saturday to play UCF in the conference championship game. And when you look at Central Florida, you can look at it 2 ways. When you look at these guys on tape and preparing for the game this weekend, do you look at a team that's 9-3, ranked 25th in the country, or do you look at a team that only has 1 victory against a team with a winning record? How good is this team that they're getting ready to play?
Well, George O'Leary said it, their coach said it in the press conference, that all you can play for is championships, and they're playing for a championship. They got a schedule at the beginning of the year that had 12 games on it, and they won 9 of them. They didn't beat North Carolina State or Kansas State, BCS conferences, and they only dropped it to Southern Miss, who's not a slouch. So they won 75% of their games, and if you look at the way that they've won, they've started to get better. As the season's gone on, they've progressed, and it's not too much of a coincidence. It's the same time that a young, very dynamic quarterback his plate has grown within their offense, and defense has been there all year. They've been great. They're just now starting to really explode.
You talk about the offense and their new quarterback, Jeff Godfrey, who came in basically because of an injury. He's a little guy. He's listed at 5'11" and 180, but by most accounts, that's probably a little generous on both numbers. but he's got 10 rushing touchdowns, which is 2 short of Dante Culpepper's record for quarterbacks out there. Other than his rushing touchdowns, you look at their stat sheet, nothing really jumps out at you. They don't have a huge receiver, a huge running back. Godfrey doesn't have enormous passing numbers, but they're putting up 35 points a game. This is a very opportunistic team, isn't it, that gets points on special teams and defense.
Yeah, in fact, 8 non-offensive touchdowns on the year. So an average of close to 1 a game. They're right at that number. And that they're sudden change plays, interception returns. They had a kid take an interception back 100 yards. So it's not just scoop and score, interception to stop a drive. They're taking it, and they've got the amount of athletes on the defensive end or and in the special teams. As soon as they get their hands on the ball, they're all going looking for scores, and that really can separate a program. Teams around the country every year are pretty good, but when they start scoring defensively and start scoring on special teams, it just takes them to another step, and they separate from the pack, if you want. I think Central Florida they're clearly separated from the pack.
You look at Godfrey, and again, he's a little guy, doesn't have the hugest arm in the world. He's, not a bad arm, but he's putting up 150-something yards per game. But in the last 6 games, they've had at least 1 touchdown pass of 40 or more yards. Is he flinging it downfield? Does he have a better arm than people give him credit for? Or is this a lot of short and intermediate stuff, and their receivers are taking it the rest of the way because of their speed and athleticism on the outside?
If you look at their receiver depth chart, they've got about 5 guys that are 6'2", 220. And that's a great build. It's a very strong guy. This is the same school that spit out Mike Sims-Walker for the Jaguars, and Brandon Marshall playing now for the Dolphins. 2 very good fantasy picks for anybody that plays that game.
Right.
So they've got the amount of athletes down there. It's just a matter of figuring where they fit within their offense, and then they can run it. They got a big, strong offensive line, so they can plod you, 5, 6, 7 yards a pop, and then get a one-on-one matchup. Godfrey's got enough of it. He's got a good enough arm. He's got a really good arm. If Jeff Godfrey were 6'2", he would have played at any school in the country, wherever he wanted to go play. They generously list him at 5'11", but he was probably recruited by your Miamis and your Florida States to come play cornerback, come play receiver, something. But he had the conviction in himself to say, I'm a quarterback. I'm going to play quarterback in the college game. And so he took a step, maybe not a BCS level school like Central Florida, but as a freshman, he's gotten onto the field, true freshman. He's making a lot of plays. And so they built this package around him to, when they throw, it's high percentage throws. So it's a small throw and maybe a short throw that a very good athlete's catching, and he's got 1 man to beat because the defense is locked in on a running game or trying to load the box to stop a very strong team. They're very balanced. Their numbers across the board are balanced because they've got a lot of athletes, and it's just a matter of what matchup wins that particular play. That's tough for a team to defend.
You talk about that balance. Their best running back, Ronnie Weaver, is putting up about 70 yards a game. Good, but not Zach Line numbers.
Well, they've had 4 different kids leading rushers,
right,
throughout the season long. So there's balance, there's depth. That who gets the hot hand, who gets into a rhythm, who presents a matchup problem versus defense. So,
but is it Godfrey's running ability that really makes this offense go right now?
I think he makes you aware. You have to defend him. Rob Calabrese was the other quarterback that got hurt, who was their starter going into the year. He was a mobile kid as well. Neither of them are pocket passers. So it's not like they've just totally changed their offense. They've just got a really dynamic young player that they're basically giving him a page of the playbook a day as opposed to just opening it up and let him go. So as he's built and come along, defenses are having to defend. His acumen, his comfort level is getting higher. His awareness level and what he's doing, his checks, they're giving him some checks. And so he's taking on, from a coaching staff, he's taking on a little bit more. And it's tough to defend when he can go up to the line of scrimmage and see what the defense is doing, and then he has to pick the best of 2 or 3 plays. He's putting them in a chance to have success every play.